Gadgetzan, the city of opportunity.
Hello friends and welcome to a Hearthstone card set review, and I hope you've got your wits about you because we're headed down to the mean streets of Gadgetzan, that's right. And Blizzard's new hot mechanic for this expansion is the factions, the gangs that rule over Gadgetzan, and there's three of them. There's the Grimy Goons, the Jade, Lotus and the Kabal, and each gang is comprised of three of the classes that are in Hearthstone. So what that means is that each trio of classes is going to have a mechanic that they kind of share. So although every class is still going to have their own unique flavour, there's going to be a kind of shared concept that goes over each set of three. And we're going to talk about those one faction at a time. But first off, we're going to start with the neutral cards. But before we do that, I just wanted to explain what the basic gangs do, just so you have an idea of that going into the card set review. So first up, we have the Grimy Goons. The Grimy Goons are the Hunter, the Paladin, and the Warrior. And they're kind of your backstreet mobsters. And much like backstreet mobsters, they work on the basis that you see one guy and you go, that's just one dude, and then there's more of them. And because there's more of them, the numbers bulk up against you. And they work on this Grime Street hold mechanic, as it's been coined by the community. And the idea is that you play cards that are a little bit understated, but they buff other cards in your hand. So you'll get cards that, hey, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2, or give a random weapon in your hand +1/+1, or buff all cards in your hand. So kind of like the effect we saw on Mistcaller, but a little more specified to what's in your hand currently. And the idea is you're losing tempo initially, but you'll be able to buff your later plays and make them stronger than they would be normally. And hypothetically, if you chain stuff together, you keep chaining these hold buffs together, you're going to be able to keep up your tempo and make up for the fact that the cards are understated by default. Then you've got the Jade Lotus. The Jade Lotus is the Druid, the Rogue and the Shaman, and they all work around this Jade Golem card. Now the Jade Golem's not actually a card, it's kind of a token, but it's summoned by a lot of cards that the Jade Lotus classes play. And it's a token minion that grows every time you play it. So the first time you summon a Jade Golem, it's going to be a 1/1. And the second time, it's going to be a 2/2. The third time, it's going to be a 3/3, and so on and so forth. The 10th one's going to be a 10/10. The 11th one's going to be 11/11. So, they're not very good the first time. The first time you play a card summoning a Jade Lotus, you're kind of overpaying for it. But it's not about the first one. It's about the last one you play. Because every one you play is going to make that last one bigger. So if you play 5 over the course of the game, the last one's a 5/5. If you played one more early in the game, that last one will be a 6/6. And that's a big difference, you know? So that's kind of where the Jade Lotus are going. It could be a potentially very strong mechanic if there are enough Jade Lotus cards or enough Jade Golem summoning cards to get you going. And the final faction is the Kabal, the Mage, the Priest and the Warlock, the shady potion crafters. And potions are one of their core mechanics. They've actually kind of got two. So the potions are spells basically, but they're a lot of quite powerful spells. There's a lot of AoE and such in there. We'll see the potions as we get to the Kabal, but they focus a lot on those. They also have a second thing, which is the Highlander style mechanic, or the Reno mechanic. So if you're familiar with Reno Jackson, the card that's been in the game for a while from the League of Explorers, what that does is it gives you a very powerful effect, healing your hero to full if you have no duplicate cards in your deck. And the Kabal have several cards that all give you very powerful effects if there are no duplicates in your deck. So normally, obviously, you'd have to have two max copies of any card in your deck. With this, you can only have one copy of any card in your deck. And that's really interesting because it does really encourage some unique design in deck building and a lot of variety in your deck building. So that's a lot of fun, and I think the Kabal could make for some really interesting deck setups as a result. But we'll get onto those later. We're going to start with the neutral minions, so let's just get to them. Now some of these neutral minions are fairly simple. We'll jump through them quickly. Some of them might take a little more explanation, but let's just get on with it. One final thing to note before we get into the cards is that this is the last set of 2016, and as soon as the next set comes out, the first one in 2017, some of the old expansions are going to be rotating out. So we're going to lose Blackrock Mountain, we're going to lose the League of Explorers, we're going to lose the Grand Tournaments. There's a lot of powerful cards in there. We'll have them for a few months with this set, but they will be going away after that. So bear that in mind going forward. Now, starting up, Mistress of Mixtures, a 1-mana 2/2, Death Rattle, restore 4 health to both players. Fantastic anti-aggro card this. You know, a 1-mana 2/2 is quite strong. It can actually take out a lot of 2-drops. There's a lot of 3/2s out there. There's even a lot of more techie 2/2s at the 2-drop. So having this this card that doesn't die to ping, it doesn't die to a lot of 1 health minions. It will trade with some of the 2/1s obviously, but it's quite potent, and restoring the health is great for anti-aggro. It's always going to be pretty strong for you. I think this is a good card. I think that if aggro is around, if there's a lot of zoo, this is going to be a card you'll see a ton of as a great kind of counter to that. Next up, we have Burghley Sniper. So a Murloc card, 2 mana, 2/1, Battlecry, deal 1 damage. Obviously, this is going to fit in a Murloc deck. If you don't have a Murloc deck, I think Elven Archer just outclasses this card. Yeah, you lose 1 attack, but it's 1 mana less. You still basically get the thing you want. Now, Murloc cards are maybe going to be okay. There's a few coming up in this expansion. Whether they'll see too much play remains to be seen. If they do, Burghley Sniper might be used. If they don't, I don't think this card merits playing a non-Murloc deck, because I think Elven Archer is just better. That said, in Arena it's probably okay. Elven Archer is quite good in Arena, so there's that to bear in mind. Going forward, the Friendly Bartender, 2 mana, 2/3. At the end of your turn, restore 1 health to your hero. So it's an end of turn effect. It's going to keep recurring if they leave it up. Again, a good anti-aggro card here. 2/3 is probably what you want as an anti-aggro card, because it's going to survive a little bit longer. It will kill most of those 1-drops, basically all 1-drops. Maybe not the 1/3s, but at least it will trade with them over time. And if it's trading with them over time, you're going to keep restoring health. This is a card that aggro decks have to deal with. They have to trade into it, because they can't have you keep restoring health. Even just restoring 1 health is okay. This card's good. It's going to be good in Arena because it's a 2 mana, 2/3, and it has a nice little bonus for you as well. The Gadgetzan Socialite, 2 mana, 2/2, Battlecry, restore 2 health. I'm unsure about this card. Voodoo Doctor doesn't really see play, and that's a 1 mana, 2/1. So all you're getting is 1 more health for your extra mana. Is that enough? I mean, it does stop ping, and that's good. I don't know that Gadgetzan Socialite will see a ton of play, but that said, perhaps there's room for it out there. So, keep an eye out. The Backstreet Leper, 3 mana, 3/1, Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So a buffed up version of your old Leper Gnome. Leper Gnome used to be a 2/1, is now a 1/1. That makes this card look a little better, but it still doesn't look very good. I mean, you're paying 3 times as much just to get 2 more attack on it. It doesn't even buff up the Death Rattle. If this dealt 3 damage to the enemy hero at Death Rattle, perhaps it would be viable in aggro decks. I don't think this is good enough to really see play, but I do like that art. I do like this dude just lobbing that potion. Ah, what a cute dude. Sadly, probably not going to see too much of him in action. And now onto the Hired Gun, 3 mana, 4/3 with Taunt. It's a good vanilla minion. It's statted well. 4/3 versus 3/4 is always going to be a contentious thing, because 4/3s do die to 3-drops. But, a decent card. You'll pick it in Arena. You probably won't pick it in Constructed, but it's fine. It's okay. Street Trickster, 3 mana, 0/7 demon with spell damage +1. Interesting, this is a neutral demon here. We got another neutral demon, but it probably, because it's a demon, would see most play in Warlock. Now, 7 stats for 3 mana is about what you'd expect. 3/4s and so on. But 0/7 is such a hard stat line to work with, because you don't have any attack. You don't have any way to actually impact the board. Yes, if they take it out, and they'll probably want to take it out because it's spell damage, that kind of saves you 7 health in a way, but you don't damage their minions while they're taking you down, and so your Street Trickster is actually probably not going to impact too much. The one upside this card might have is that spell damage normally doesn't last a turn, so most spell damage cards are ones you want to play on the turn you play the spell, like Blood Mage Thalnos, or even, the Kobold Geomancer seen a little bit of play because Shaman's so good right now, and spell damage is so good in Shaman, and it's a cheap card you can play and then get the spell damage from. With Street Trickster, it's so tanky, it might be able to be played on turn 3, survive a turn, and then you get the spell damage from it. That might make it worthwhile, but I don't think it will see that much play, to be honest. Maybe in a demon deck, if you can buff it up with demon cards, I guess I could see that, perhaps, but is a demon deck going to be good? I guess we'll see when we get to Warlock. Toxic Sewer Ooze, 3 mana, 4/3, Battlecry, remove 1 durability from your opponent's weapon. So, here's your Acidic Swamp Ooze, bigger brother, I guess, but it only removes 1 durability, whereas the Acidic Swamp Ooze just destroys a weapon flat out. Most of the time, most of the weapons that you're going to be up against at the moment only have 1 durability at the time, because they're usually 2 durability weapons. The enemy equips them, swings once, and then you're just going to be able to bop them off. So that's okay. But also, it's a tech card, it's a card to destroy weapons. If you're playing a tech card, you're probably better off playing a cheaper tech card. And the 2 mana 3/2 of the Acidic Swamp Ooze is good stats I think you'd probably stick with that over the Toxic Surus. That said, this will be a card that you can absolutely draft in Arena, and you probably should draft in Arena because it's well statted for the cost, and it also has a nice bonus when you come up against those weapon decks. 4 mana, 3/3 Daring Reporter. Whenever your opponent draws a card, gain +1/+1. So bear in mind, the opponent will draw a card at the start of their turn, so at sort of starting value, this is a 4/4 that could get bigger. That makes it okay in Arena. Is it good enough in Constructed? I mean, if you're playing a mill deck, hypothetically you can make this work, but if you're playing a mill deck, you might just be as well off playing, you know, any of the other cards that grow when you do stuff like a questing adventure or something. I don't think this card is great. I don't think it's going to see a ton of play, but it's interesting, I suppose. I like the artwork on it a lot. Hozan Healer, 4 mana, 2/6 Battlecry, restore a minion to full health. Full health is a potent heal, and that might make Hozan Healer see play. That said, if you're dropping it on turn 4, what are you healing to full health? I mean, there are a few cards out there that could be good at healing to full health. I don't know. We will see a card later that's kind of nice to be healed up to full health. That's a 3-drop, but I don't know, it's okay. Maybe in Arena this is a good card because healing, you could swing tempo back. In the late game, Hozan Healer is still going to be really good. You know, if you're able to heal back up a Ragnaros or something, you know, you hit someone with your Ragnaros Light Lord, you heal that back up to full health so that the Ragnaros can heal your face. But, you know, how often do you have a Ragnaros Light Lord in Arena? I guess in Constructed, maybe it will see play. Also, worth noting, I think you can use this with the Priest Shadow effects, and that will kill a minion. So, maybe some tech play there. Hozan Healer's got potential, at least. Kooky Chemist, 4 mana, 4/4, swap the attack and health of a minion. So this is the Crazed Alchemist, but bumped up to a 4 mana, 4/4. In Constructed, as I was kind of saying with the Swamp Oozes, a tech card you generally want to be cheap. This is a tech card. You might as well just take the 2 mana, 2/2 variant. I don't think you're going to want to see both in the same deck. So you're probably better off with just the cheaper one that still does the same thing you want it to. In Arena, this is decent. A 4 mana 4/4 is okay. It's not the stats you want, but it's stats you'll probably accept. And the effect can do some interesting stuff as well. Nagacorsair, 4 mana pirate. It's a 5/4 Battlecry. Give your weapon +1 attack. So it's a slightly weaker version of Captain Greenskin, which is a 5 mana 5/4 that gives you +1/+1. 1 durability is probably better than 1 attack. I'm going to say it is better than 1 attack in most cases. Sometimes, in fact, I will say +1/+1 is much more significant than just +1 of either of them. Because not only are you buffing the strength, but you're giving extra charge on top of buffing the strength, which you also get that buff strength for. So Nagacorsair, it's well statted. In a pirate deck it might see play. In Arena it's okay because it is a 4 mana 5/4. Outside of a pirate deck, I don't think this card's good enough to do too much. Tenaris Hog Chopper, 4 mana 4/4, and we'll see a couple of these. The Hog Riders. If your Battlecry, if your opponent's hand is empty, gain charge, and all these Hog Riders gain charge from certain things. If your opponent's hand is empty, is a tough trigger to follow. That means they're probably playing an aggro deck, especially if it's empty by turn 4. That's unlikely to happen. If it does work, a 4/4 with charge is very good. But really, you want to play... This is a kind of card... A 4/4 charge is something you'd want to play in a more aggressive deck. Not in not as a counter to aggression. So I don't think Tenaris Hog Chopper is that good. Because I think the Battlecry is too tough to satisfy most of the time. And the times where you do satisfy it aren't necessarily times that you'd want to use it. I guess, like, hypothetically, it could see play as like a late game top deck, but are we going to be getting into top deck wars? That depends how the meta shakes out, really. Worgen Greaser, 4 mana 6/3, nothing much to say about this. It's a vanilla minion. It's not ideal stats, 3 health is quite low, it can be killed by 2 drops quite easily, but 6 attack is a lot. 6 attack trades with almost anything except those really big high-end minions. And that means this is an okay pick in Arena. Will it see playing Constructed? I don't think so. I think the health is just too low for it. Especially when you're at the 4 mana slot. I think, you know, there's going to be better options out there. But it's got, again, cool art. Nice art. They hit the Grease style Worgen. Very into that, very into that. Good hair. Grookfu Master, 5 mana, 3/5, Windfury. Windfury Harpy doesn't see play and isn't a good pick in Arena. This is 1 mana less. You get 1 less attack. It's still not a good card. I don't think this is worth picking in Arena. I don't think this is worth picking in... Well, it's definitely not worth picking in Constructed. There's better ways to get big damage than to Windfury this guy. I don't know. No. It's just too low stats. Like, it would be better off with more health. And then if you're going to buff it, which is the thing you want to do to a Windfury minion, it needs to survive. And a 5 mana 5 health thing isn't actually likely to survive that long because they'll just play something else with 5 attack that it trades into. Red Mana Worm, 5 mana 2/6. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +2 attack. So this is a buffed up Mana Worm, the Mage Mana Worm, which is a 1 mana 1/3. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +1 attack. So they basically doubled all the numbers, apart from the mana cost, which is 5 times as high. That's a big jump, and I think that makes Red Mana Worm a little hard to play. Now, the one consideration here is with the Rogue, because with the Rogue, if you played this and concealed it, and then next turn you did your miracle style spell preparations and shivs and all this good stuff, this could be like a 1-turn kill win condition kind of thing. That might work. I don't think the Rogue doesn't necessarily need that, but you might see them include a Red Mana Worm as a secondary win condition, or even a tertiary win condition. That's where I could see it play. Other than that, I think the 5 mana is just too heavy a cost for what you're going to do, and so I don't think Red Mana Worm's going to see play, because it will just... with 2 attack with the turn you play it, it's probably going to be dead before you get a chance to buff it up. Streetwise Investigator, 5 mana 4/6, battle cry, enemy minions lose stealth. Good art again, but way too niche, I think. The only class that really does much with stealth is the Rogue, and even if stealth Rogue becomes a thing, you can't really tech card against one class, because there's just going to be too many things it doesn't work against. So unless Stealth Rogue completely dominates the meta, Streetwise Investigator is not going to see play, and I don't think that's going to happen. In Arena it's okay because it's 5 mana 4/6, and maybe sometimes you'll get a stealth off something. That's fine, I guess, but it's nothing special. Ancient of Blossoms, 6 mana 3/8 with Taunt. Now, Bulk Creeper says hello, the 7 mana 6/8 with Taunt. This maybe should have been a 4/8, but maybe at 4/8 is slightly too strong. I don't know. It's okay, it's not terrible. It certainly pales in comparison to Bog Creeper, but then Bog Creeper was one of the most powerful cards in the set, certainly arena-wise. And, you know, one of those cards that was almost constructed viable, except that the meta didn't really quite shift out the way to make it work. Ancient of Blossoms, probably not going to see too much play. You can pick it up in arena, it's okay. It kills a lot of stuff, like it kills all the 2 and 3 drops pretty handily most of the time. And it's going to, you know, it's a taunt, so it's going to get in the way. It's alright. Smalltime Buccaneer, 1 mana 1/2 pirate, has +2 attack when you have a weapon equipped. Rogues are going to love this. This is maybe the best 1-drop Rogues have had, and Rogues have had some decent 1-drops. It's going to survive. You equip a weapon turn 2, you've got a 3/2 on the board already. Alternatively, you can play this in the Warrior, play it with N'Zoth's first mate. You know, so coin out, and you've got a 3/2 and a 1/1 and a 1/3 weapon. Fantastic. Like, I think there's plenty of potential for the Smalltime Buccaneer here. Outside of those 2 classes, probably not going to see too much play. But that's fine. It'll serve the purpose it needs to serve. There's definitely plenty of potential for Pirate Warrior or Pirate Rogue with cards like this. Backroom Bouncer, 4 mana 4/4. Whenever a friendly minion dies, gain +1 attack. It has better base stats than a Flesh-Eating Ghoul, and that's good in kind of an arena sense. I don't think it's good enough in a constructed sense, in the same way that Flesh-Eating Ghoul isn't good enough in a constructed sense. The fact that it's only friendly minions that trigger it makes it kind of worse than Flesh-Eating Ghoul, but the higher base stats compensate for that, which make it a slightly better card to pick in the arena. Still not constructed viable. It just it doesn't really do enough, and it's understated to start with. Bomb Squad, 5 mana 2/2, Battle Cry, deal 5 damage to an enemy minion, Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your hero. So the anti-tech card, or just the tech counter to Sylvanas Windrunner, of course. They play their Sylvanas, you blow it up with this targeted 5 damage to an enemy minion. They steal your bomb squad, you kill it because it's a 2-2, they take 5 damage to the face. Good stuff. Other than that, still a good card. It's 5 targeted damage, and honestly, like, taking 5 damage to your hero when the 2-2 dies isn't too bad for getting the 5 targeted damage. It's certainly a worthwhile pick in Arena. May well see some play in Constructed depending on how well it counters stuff like Sylvanas. If Sylvanas is seeing a ton of play, you could see people running a bomb squad to try and counter that. Other than that, I don't think it will see Constructed play, but certainly a good Arena card. Doppelgangster, 5 mana, 2-2, Battlecry, summon 2 copies of this minion. This is a fantastic card. I really like this card. All you need to compare it to is Force of Nature, which now is a 5 mana, summon 3 2-2 treants. That's what this does, except that if you buff the card up before you play it, and bear in mind the Grimy Goons, the Grime Street hold mechanic, is looking to buff up cards in your hand, then this is fantastic. You know, even if you make this a 3-3, suddenly you're getting 5 mana for 3 3-3s. That's 9-9 in stats for 5 mana. That's fantastic. Any more buffs than that is going to be even better. Also worth noting that it summons basically 3 cards with Battlecry, so anything that triggers when you summon Battlecry minions is going to benefit from that as well. Also worth noting, they're all 5 mana cards, so if you've got an Evolve Shaman and you play this and then hit Evolve, you're evolving 3 cards. You're getting 3 6 mana cards, random ones, but 3 6 mana cards for 6 mana. And that's great value. So Doppelgangster, certainly a card with a ton of potential. I'm very excited to see how it gets played. Second Rate Bruiser, 5 mana, 4-5, taunt, costs 2 less if your opponent has at least 3 minions. Great anti-aggro card. 5 mana, 4-5 taunt is not too bad. Senjin is a 4 mana, 3-5 taunt. You're only getting 1 more stat. But if it's a 3 mana 4-5 taunt, which oftentimes against aggro they will have 3 minions on the board, this is a really strong counter to that. So if aggro's seeing a lot of play, you know, or sort of Zooey decks that put out a lot of minions early on, then you will absolutely see Second Rate Bruiser see some play. It's a good solid card. Even paying 5 mana for it is not terrible if you have to, and paying 3 mana for it is fantastic. So a good card that will likely see some play, and you can certainly go picking it. Spiked Hog Rider, 5 mana, 5-5, Battlecry if an enemy minion has Taunt, gain charge. So here's our second Hog Rider. Taunt is a much easier condition to satisfy than having an empty hand on the enemy. But why would you not just play the Black Knight if you were going to play something to deal with a Taunt minion, you know? Because, sure, you play this, you trade it into their Taunt minion because they've got Taunt, so you're not going to charge them into the face. Unless you have a way to play this and then kill the taunt or silence the taunt and then go face with it. It's not going to be any good for face decks really because of that. I feel like Black Knight does a better job, and yes, that's a legendary, and yes, it's you know, you're not going to see that in Arena. You might see Spiked Hog Rider in Arena. This card's okay, you know, a 5-5 with taunt is with charge is good. Even a 5 mana 5-5 is okay. Enemies are going to have taunt quite a lot of time, but it's nothing too special. But it's not a bad card either. 6 mana. Big Time Racketeer, 1-1, 6 mana card. Battlecry, summon a 6-6 ogre. So you get his little friend comes along, and you get 7-7 in stats for 6 mana. That's great. 6 mana, 7-7 is good stats. You can't really complain about that too much. And also the fact that it's a Battlecry is fun because, you know, you can double Battlecry, get the get 2 6-6 ogres out. If you shadow casted this, if you wanted to shadow cast or something, this is a great target. 1 mana 1-1 that still summons a 6-6 ogre. That's pretty fun. Yeah, this is a good card and certainly a good arena pick. You get good stats. The way it's split out means that it just trades with an ogre, Bold Fist ogre, but that's fine. You know, you can't really complain too much about that. Having a 1-1 is fine, and having a 6-6 is very nice too. Weasel Tunneler, 1 mana 1-1, Death Rattle, shuffle this minion into your opponent's deck, and it's a beast. This is a really fun little card, and I'm glad that they made it, because the idea is, you know, you play it on turn 1, the enemy doesn't really want to kill it, because then it's going to ruin one of their draws later when they want actually one of their cards out their deck, and they get a useless 1 mana 1-1. The only problem with that is that if they then play it, it then comes back into your deck, you have to face drawing it when you don't want to. This could therefore see play in Hunter, because what Hunter can do is use 1 mana beasts as a nice activator for their cards that need a beast to trigger. Is Beast Hunter going to be a good thing in this expansion? It's tough to say. Maybe not. Maybe the Grimy Goons Hunter will be a bigger deal than Beast Hunter specifically. But even so, this is a fun card. I'm glad it exists. I'm sure we'll see some crazy plays where someone coins out 2 of these on turn 1, and then the opponent can't just draw. The opponent draws both of them on like turn 3 and turn 4, and can't do anything, and you're just playing out the rest of your deck and curving out really nicely. And that'll make for some good highlights, if nothing else. Dirty Rat. 2 mana, 2/6 taunt. Battle cry. Your opponent summons a random minion from their hand. At first glance, this card seems pretty bad because it's pulling a minion out their hand straight away. And the reason that's bad is that they get the card straight away. You know, it's not like we've seen before where the card, their card comes out after your minion dies. Here they get it straight away, and admittedly they don't get the battle cry of their minion, and that's where this is interesting, and it's where it kind of gets kind of fun, because you can use this as a tech card. It's 2 mana. If you have a way to deal with the minion that comes out, you could pull out one of their key combo pieces. You know, you could pull out their Gadgetzan Auctioneer and then just blow it up straight then and there. So as a card to play as like a tech solution against combo decks in the late game, that's really good. And against aggro, it's still a 2 mana 2/6 with taunt. Yes, you're going to pull something out of their deck, and that's going to help an aggro deck, but they still have to get through 6 health of taunt, and that's probably going to kill everything that hits it. So this card's not as bad as it perhaps first looks. Worth considering, at least for the tech potential. Blubber Baron, fantastic name, fantastic art. 3 mana 1/1. Whenever you summon a battle cry minion while this is in your hand, gain +1/+1. Doesn't seem great at first, but then if you consider the Grimy Goons mechanic, this works very well, because almost all the Grimy Goons cards are battle cry, because it's battle cry, give a random minion in your hand plus whatever. This is going to trigger off all of them. Also, it will trigger off Doppelgangster. If you play that, remember I said that summons 3 battle cry minions, and this is summon, not play. You summon 3 battle cry minions, this becomes a 4/4 just off that card alone. This is a card that, you know, you can actually hang on to in your hand, kind of Thing from Below style. Now, the benefit to Thing from Below obviously is that just triggers at all times, not when it's in your hand. You have to hold this in your hand to make it work, but that's always an interesting mechanic. I like when they make you hold a card in hand. Yes, you're using up a slot in your hand, but in doing so, you're potentially getting a stronger card later. And this is buffing itself on top of any buffs that might hit it from the Grimy Goons cards that you're playing. So, in the Grimy Goons deck, I think this could actually see some play. Outside of that, I think it's going to be too slow. In Arena, I think it's probably going to be too slow. You're not going to draft that many battle cry minions. If you do, you could pick this up. It's an epic, you won't see it that often. If the circumstances line up, it could be really good. Most of the time, it won't be. But in those Grimy Goons decks, it will probably see some play. Fel Orc Soul Fiend. 3 mana, 3/7. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to this minion. So, when you first play it, and the turn comes back to you, it's a 3 mana 3/5, assuming it hasn't already been hit. You trade it into something. If it survives, it's probably going to die on your next turn, at the start of your next turn, after you traded in once. So is it that good versus just having a 3 mana 3/4? Probably not. Probably not. However, there's cards like Hozan Healer, as you saw earlier. You play that on turn 4, so you get your Fel Orc Soul Fiend, it survives to your second turn, you hit with it, and then you heal it back up to 3/7 with Hozan Healer. That's okay. Is it good enough? I don't know. You could silence it. Is that good enough? Probably not. It's probably not worth the silence. I'm not convinced by this card. At first I really liked it, and then I thought about the practicalities of it. I'm not convinced it's actually that good, but it could see some potential play. I wouldn't bank on it though, and I certainly wouldn't take it over a 3 mana 3/4 in Arena, I don't think, because I think that's just a more solid all-around card. This is just going to kill itself regardless of whether the opponent actually has an answer to it, and that's no good. Burghley Bully. 5 mana 4/6. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, add a coin to your hand. So a Trog style card. Adding a coin to your hand is nice. If you're in a rogue or something, that could be especially good because you can use it with combo stuff. If they cast one spell, it's a 4 mana 4/6 essentially. That's okay. That's pretty good. you know, is it going to be good enough to warrant playing? It might be. It might be, because the problem with a lot of the Trog cards is that they buff themselves. But if the opponent casted a spell that killed the Trog, it didn't really matter that it had been buffed. This, you always get the coin, and that's useful, and that might make Burghley Bully playable. Certainly if there's a lot of spell casting decks out there, which might happen with the Kabal having all their potions and such, then perhaps Burghley Bully will see some play. In Arena, I think it's a decent card. It's a 5 mana 4/6. You may well get a coin out of it, in which case it's very good value. Even if you don't, a 5 mana 4/6 is pretty solid. Defuses Cleaner, 6 mana 5/7. Battlecry, silence a minion with Death Rattle. In the current meta, this is a really good card. You know, 6 mana 5/7 is solid stats, not quite what you want for 6 mana. You really want one more stat out of that. But in current Hearthstone, most of the cards you want to silence are Death Rattle minions, and this absolutely satisfies that. The problem is, now we're going into a new meta, the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan meta, and there's going to be a lot of cards that perhaps this isn't going to be working on. You look at the Grimy Goons, they're not using Death Rattle, they're buffing minions in hand, so this doesn't work on those, because most of them are Battlecry minions, and they're being played with buffs on them. They're not, you know, you could silence them and remove the buffs, but you can't target them if they don't have a Death Rattle, and most of them don't. Similarly, the Jade Golems, you can't silence a Jade Golem. The way it works, you can't silence the stats of it, so it doesn't work there either. Is this going to be good? It's okay. I mean, it's a 6 mana 5/7. In Arena, you'll probably be okay taking it. It does work well. If N'Zoth is still a thing, that's great. It also, interestingly, is another good counter to Sylvanas. It silences her, and it also trades with her in a lovely way, and leaves you with a 6 mana 5/2 on the board for their 6 mana 5/5, which you've just killed and removed the effect of. Also works well against Savannah Highmane. We'll take that out, and we'll also trade with it and stay on the board. Now, bearing in mind, you play it, you silence the Savannah Highmane, you don't kill it, so then they have the option of buffing up their Savannah Highmane before they trade into your cleaner, which might give them the advantage back. So it's not ideal, but it works pretty well. It works against some of the big Death Rattle cards that you do want to silence. And as such, it's a solid card, and it will be a good pick when you do come across it in Arena. Although, again, epic. Not going to see it too often. Fight Promoter, 6 mana 4/4. Battlecry, if you control a minion with 6 or more health, draw 2 cards. 6 mana 4/4, draw 2 cards is good, I think. Yeah, that is in fact pretty good. Like, a 4/4 is worth just under 4 mana, but drawing 2 cards is probably worth about 2 to 3 mana. 3 mana is not unreasonable, and when you put those 2 things into 1 card, that makes it decent. The interesting thing about this is the implication has been that if this card comes out with 6 health, the Battlecry triggers after it's on the board. You know, you look at the way cards work in the game at the moment, they do trigger. Battlecries consider that card to be on the board already. So if you can buff this up in your hand as part of a Grimy Goons deck, then it's going to be fantastic, because you're going to get a 6 mana 6/6 and you draw 2 cards. That's fantastic. You know, you can't really argue with that. So this may well see some play in some Grimy Goons decks. I think there's definitely potential there. Leather-clad Hog Leader, the big mama of the Hog Riders. 6 mana 6/6. If your opponent has 6 or more cards in hand, gain charge. This might be a finisher you could see for the aggro decks. It's 6 mana, so do you want to play it in an aggro deck? Maybe as a one-off to go against control decks. If they've managed to just about hold you off, you can just bang them with 6 attack right at the end there. Otherwise, opponents having 6 mana late in the game, some control matchups will happen, and perhaps if control matchups become a really popular thing and people tend to have a lot of cards in hand, this card will just see play because it will just be good enough in any deck. Because a 6 mana 6/6 with charge is good. It's fantastic if you can get it to trigger regularly, and you might find that you're able to get it to trigger regularly if a lot of games are going to the late game and a lot of decks are keeping their hands filled up for that late game. If it turns out that decks are tending to top deck a lot more towards the late game, this card's obviously not going to be very good. So in Arena as well, players aren't going to have 6 cards in their hand by the time you get to turn 6 most of the time, so this card is not going to be that good. That said, it's a 6 mana 6/6. It's not terrible either. even though it's not quite what you'd like. Windup Burghley 6 mana 5/5. Whenever this attacks a minion and survives, draw a card, and it's a mech. Now the problem with this is it's really kind of anti-synergistic. Firstly, it has to attack and survive for you to draw a card. Secondly, it has to attack a minion, so it can't go face. So you have to hit it into something on sort of turn 7 or later that it will survive, in which point you're targeting something small probably, and then you only draw one card from it. And a 6 mana 5/5 draw a card wouldn't be that ridiculous given Azure Drake exists and is a 5 mana 4/4 draw a card, and it gives you spell damage. So this just feels a little underpowered, and as such I probably won't see play. It's a mech, but mech decks aren't a thing anymore, not since GVG rotated out, so it probably won't see any play. And we're on to the legendaries, the neutral legendaries. First up, Patches the Pirate. 1 mana 1/1 pirate with charge. After you play a pirate, summon this minion from your deck. It's a fun little thing. If you're playing a pirate deck, you're going to get this out straight away. The problem with it is you don't get to choose when you play it, but the benefit is it's a 1 mana 1/1 charge, or it's a free 1/1 charge basically. Even if you play it for 1 mana, it's not terrible. It's just Stone Tusk Boar style thing, but maybe it gets buffed because it's a pirate. And in an ideal scenario, it gets put into play. The reason this is good is because it thins out your deck. It reduces your deck size down, and that's a good thing. In card games, any card where you can just pull it out your deck and filter your deck down to exactly the cards you want, it is good. If you could play a 29 card deck, people would, because you just imagine like, hey, here's my 30 card deck, take the worst card out of the deck. Now I have a better 29 card deck. Obviously there's a limit to that. At some point you do need a base number of cards to make a deck work, but generally speaking, if you can filter a few cards out of your deck, that's great. This Patches comes straight out of your deck as soon as you play a pirate. You get a nice 1/1 with charge, which is a nice benefit, and you thin your deck down a little bit more, make it a little bit more honed, and that's a good thing. 3 mana 3/4 Auction Master Beardo. After you cast a spell, refresh your hero power. Interesting card. Okay stats, good standard stats. How much are you gonna? You have to pay 2 for your hero power, and then you got to cast a spell, and then you got to play your hero power again. And the hero power's not that strong. Like, all the hero powers are worth less than 2 mana on the grounds that they don't use a card. So how good is Auction Master Beardo? Probably not that good. There is one scenario we'll see later with the Priest where this could be quite potent, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. For now, Auction Master Beardo is not a particularly useful card. It is okay. It's a neat idea that probably won't actually be that well used. Sergeant Sally, 3 mana 1/1 Death Rattle, deal damage equal to this minion's attack to all enemy minions. This is a really, really strong card, potentially. Just power overwhelming on it. It dies at the end of your turn. It deals 5 damage to all enemy minions. Bang, done. Let's go home. I mean, I don't think you need to say much more than that. It's a 4 mana 2 card combo. There's plenty of ways you could buff this up, swing into it. You could just play it on the board, buff it once with a Cold Blood or something and just be done. Leave it there. The opponent has to silence it, or they have to, or just accept that when it dies, they're gonna take a big hit to the face, or to all their minions' faces at least. You play this in Warrior, you Whirlwind, it deals 1 damage to everything, and then Sergeant Sally deals another 1 damage to everything. You play this, and then you Enrage it, which buffs it up to 3 attack. It dies, and then deals 3 damage to all enemy minions. Another nice 2 card combo for 3 mana. There's loads of potential ways to use Sergeant Sally, and I think she will absolutely see play in a lot of control decks, and maybe even in some aggro decks as well, because she only hits enemy minions, so that's a nice bonus if you are playing a more aggressive or mid-range deck. So very powerful card, one of the more interesting ones that we've seen so far. Genzo the Shark, 4 mana 5/4. Whenever this attacks, both players draw until they have 3 cards. So kind of a new Jeeves. The difference is this has to attack. Jeeves triggers at the end of turn, which means that it always triggers once. Genzo could die before it gets back to your turn, and then it wouldn't do anything. Just be a 4 mana 5/4. The benefit is it's not understated the way that Jeeves was. So Genzo is a 4 mana 5/4. That is a good card, and in an aggro deck, which is where you want to play this, it might be a good sort of top end of your curve, and it would be a top end of your curve because you want to have emptied your hand before you start using Genzo. But if you get him out there, and he's got 5 attacks, a nice big beefy minion. He doesn't have to hit anything in particular, he just has to swing. If you get one attack off with him and draw a couple of cards, it's fantastic. Even if you only draw one card, it's pretty good. So I think in aggro decks, this could absolutely see some play. Other than that, it's tough to say. But the fact that it's not understated makes up, more than makes up for the fact that it has to attack to trigger, because it's still a really solid minion, even if it doesn't get its effect. And when it gets its effect, it's incredibly powerful. Finger the Flying Star, 5 mana, 2/4 Murloc. Stealth. Whenever this attacks and kills a minion, summon 2 Murlocs from your deck. There's a lot going on here. So, summoning 2 Murlocs from your deck is great, and then it pulls it out of your deck, which is good because it's essentially drawing and playing 2 cards. It's only a 2/4 for 5 mana, which is incredibly low stats. That might be enough to kind of hold against it, especially as a lot of Murlocs are quite low stats anyway, so they tend to be, they're cheap, easy to play minions. So do you really get that much value from playing 2 of them? Maybe. The fact that it has stealth means it will attack. Will it kill a minion is the question. On turn 5 with 2 attack, will it be able to kill a minion? Maybe if you've buffed it up with your other Murlocs. This is really, it's going to be an interesting one to play around with. I don't think it's good enough for the mana cost, but perhaps I'll be proven completely wrong, and perhaps it will be incredibly powerful somehow. Maybe it'll get buffed up by anything can happen, and that'll prove me wrong. It'll go smashing stuff up, and then you get a bunch of Murlocs, and then you just win. It could happen. Madam Goya, 6 mana, 4/3. Battle cry, choose a friendly minion, swap it with a minion in your deck. So, a really interesting effect. Hypothetically, there's 2 ways to look at this. One is to get a powerful minion out of your deck for something cheap and cheerful that you don't mind playing again later. Although, bear in mind, that cheap and cheerful thing will take up a draw later if you do that. The other way is to put something back in your deck. So play Reno Jackson, then swap it back, get something else out your deck that isn't Reno Jackson, and then get him again later to play him again and heal up to full a second time. The problem with this is it feels kind of counterintuitive with itself, because if you're putting something back in your deck for later, you probably want a Battlecry minion that you've got the effect out of early, so that you can then put it back in your deck, play it again, get the Battlecry effect again. But if you're pulling something out of your deck and putting it on the board, you don't want to put a Battlecry minion on the board because you won't get that Battlecry effect, which means you need a deck that has Battlecry minions to play but doesn't have Battlecry minions that you're going to pull out of your deck. So it kind of works in opposition to itself in a weird way, and that means that I don't think it's a great card, but perhaps there's potential for it. The Mage, I think, has a better option in terms of shuffling stuff back in your deck, because pulling stuff out of your deck isn't necessarily a good idea, kind of depending on what you're working with. Rathian, 6 mana, 4/5, Taunt, Battlecry, draw cards until you draw one that isn't a dragon. I really, really like this card. Nice art as well, but the important thing is that this is a very strong card. It's kind of like the Curator in that it's a Taunt, it's got card draw. It's probably going to draw several cards. Bear in mind, it will always draw a card, and a 6 mana, 4/5 Taunt, draw a card is okay. It's not ideal, but it's not bad. And more than, if you're playing it in a dragon deck, there's a decent chance you draw 2 cards. That would be pretty damn good, and if you draw more than that, could be even better. Now the interesting thing, as I've seen playing Magic, is with effects of the kind of draw cards until you draw this, is you can end up drawing a lot of cards. And let's just say you get unlucky and you're playing a dragon deck and you've got 15 dragons in your deck, 16 dragons in your deck, and you draw 10 in a row from Rathian. Not only are you going to burn probably half of those dragons, which might include several of your win conditions, you've also left yourself with almost nothing in your deck, and you've probably lost the game straight then and there. So this could make for some fantastic highlight moments, but generally speaking, I think this will just be a good card. It might even be good enough to play in a non-dragon deck. Probably not quite, but I wouldn't entirely rule it out. And in a dragon deck, I think you play this and you just take the chance. The likelihood of you drawing 10 dragons in a row is fairly low. So just hope that you don't get too unlucky with that one. And Rathian will probably serve you very, very well. If this draws 2 or 3 cards, you're very happy. And finally, in the neutral cards, Mere Nagacorsair. 9 mana, 5/4. All targets are chosen randomly. So, Mogor the Ogre taken to the next level. This apparently triggers on anything that has an arrow. So, targeting, battle cry effects, spells, attack targeting. It won't target invalid targets. So, if you consider the ogres, the way the ogres work, you can hit past a taunt minion. You can hit stealthed minions with one of yours, because the ogre can hit anything, and it can hit a minion that it shouldn't be able to hit as a result. This doesn't happen with Nagacorsair. If there's something that has to hit, if there's a taunt minion in the way, it will have to hit that taunt minion. If a spell says target a friendly minion, it will always target a friendly minion, just a randomly chosen friendly minion. This card is way too expensive for its stat line, and as such probably won't see any competitive play, but it's a fun thing, and I'm sure we'll see some fun bits and bobs from it. It's a novelty card, but there's always room for a few novelty cards in a big expansion like this, and I think it could be a ton of fun. So let's go for it, Mayor Nagacorsair. And that's going to do it for the neutral cards. So thank you for joining me on this card review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're very excited for the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan expansion. I hope you're as excited as I am about it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the new trio of gangs could really mix things up in some interesting ways, and we're going to start talking about them in the upcoming videos, so hopefully you'll stick around for those. And we're going to start by talking about the Grimy Goons next. So until then, thank you for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!
Welcome to the big time, pal!
On the mean streets of Gadgetzan.
Now who's got the upper hand?